they need to get along with each other. They need to narrow their differences. They need to meet as soon as possible and talk very frankly, very straightforwardly, compare notes, and hopefully China and the United States can coordinate their actions together.
China exports $500 billion worth of goods and services to America. America exports less than a third of that to China. Donald Trump thinks that's a problem and has threatened to impose 60% tariffs on goods from China. How is this viewed by the Chinese? Well, Victor Gao is the vice president of the Beijing-based Center for China and Globalization. He's a proxy voice in many respects for President Xi. We often turn to him on this program to get the Chinese perspective. What does China make of the arrival of Donald Trump? I'll have a listen to this.
First of all, for Trump to win the presidential election is actually not surprising at all, because it is true that the Biden administration is a Cold War presidency, and they are very eager to engage in wars of all kinds, Cold War, hot war, proxy war, etc. And Trump understood what really matters for the American people much more keenly, and he stood firm, tried to defend the fundamental interests of the American people. Now that Trump has won the election, Chinese President Xi Jinping was one of the first heads of state to send a message of congratulation to President-elect Trump, and I think the Chinese government is fully prepared to engage with President Trump starting on January the 20th, 2025, and his administration in real earnest try to solve all the problems between China and the United States in peaceful negotiations. So it is a great moment in China-US relations, and I'm personally not frightened by the talk about maximum sanctions against Chinese exports to the United States, because fundamentally, if you really believe in what President Trump has said for choosing peace rather than war in the coming 4 years, that bodes well for China-US good, constructive relations between the two countries.
I guess the question, though, Victor, is he might not want war, and he might be someone who doesn't want global wars, and I think he consistently says that, Donald Trump. He also says that he wants to fight an economic war with China. He wants to put tariffs on Chinese goods that will ultimately have a very severe sanctioning effect on China. Are you not worried about that? Because if he puts 20, 30, 60% tariffs on Chinese goods, that's going to have a major impact on the Chinese economy. You must be wary of that.
President Trump, about 8 years ago, started the tariff war against China, and his tariff war brought very bad results for both China and the United States. China suffered, and the United States also suffered. I think someone close by to Mr. Trump need to tell him that all these tariffs were not paid by China. It's not paid by the Chinese government or the Communist Party of China. It's paid in its entirety by the American people, especially the American consumers. Actually, the maximum pressure imposed on China's export to the United States by former President Trump and incumbent President Biden, etc., is one of the reasons for the runaway inflation in the United States, eroding the living standards of the American people. Therefore, if President Trump, starting on January the 20th, continues to impose maximum tariffs against Chinese export to the United States, I think he will hurt more the fundamental interests of the American people than China's export to the United States. So I think Mr. Trump needs to be very philosophical about it. He uses tariffs as a means as well as an end. I think between China and the United States, we need to be philosophical about that. And if his real goal is to achieve more balanced trade between China and the United States, reducing the trade amount is one way to do that, but increasing the amount to, let's say, $1 trillion and for the additional amount to be added to China-US trade volume, the United States need to export more to China is a better way, more constructive way. So I think between China and the United States, there will be room to talk about it rather than simply imposing sanctions, which will be in no country's benefit.
Do you think Xi and Trump will get on well personally? They've had dealings before, but do you think that that's important, that Trump is you know what Trump is like as a person? He likes powerful men. He likes autocratic men. Xi is an autocratic man, undoubtedly. Trump kind of admires people like that. Do you think at a personal level they'll get on?
I would say in the world of today, Mr. Trump, who is becoming president very soon, and President Xi Jinping of China are the two most powerful, omnipotent persons in the world of today. They need to get along with each other. They need to narrow their differences. They need to meet as soon as possible and talk very frankly, very straightforwardly, compare notes, and hopefully China and the United States can coordinate their actions together. If they do not see point to point, eye to eye on major issues in the world, if they do not commit to preserving peace and stability in China-US relations, mankind as a whole will suffer the consequences. So my best hope right now is that President Trump, once he becomes the president again, and Chinese President Xi Jinping will agree to meet as soon as possible.
Do you think they'd prefer him to Biden? And indeed Harris? Do you think if China could pick one of Harris, Biden or Trump, they'd probably be happier with Trump?
Joe Biden broke a record in China-US relations. He became the first incumbent US president who didn't visit China in his official capacity as the US president ever since President Reagan. That's really a very, very heavy blow to China-US relations. Harris hasn't demonstrated her decisiveness in distancing herself from the policy legacies of President Biden. And President Biden, according to my best judgment, has proven in all measurement as a president of Cold War mentality, pursuing war of all kinds and having no eagerness to stop a war once it broke out. I truly believe that Mr. Trump will be different, and I truly hope President Trump will honor his commitment of preserving peace, and I hope he will really be declared a peace president, not a war president for the United States. And that in itself will be tremendous amount of benefit for mankind. So let's hope for the best for Mr. Trump and President Trump. Let's hope peace will prevail and war will never be ventured again.
That's Victor Gao then. We were talking all throughout the end of last week saying that it's amazing how sanguine people are about Donald Trump, how they're convincing themselves that Donald Trump is the figure they think he is, rather than the figure he might sometimes present himself to be. James makes the point he did get elected on a mandate of putting up tariffs against China. Victor Gao there, representing the Beijing establishment, doesn't believe he's going to do it. We shall see.